Good evening. Tonight, we stand at the threshold of a pivotal moment in modern history, one that could reshape the global order for years to come. The world holds its breath as the United States unleashes the most sweeping and comprehensive sanctions ever imposed against Russia, sending shockwaves through international markets and diplomatic circles alike. This is not another diplomatic warning. It's a direct, unprecedented challenge to Vladimir Putin's regime, signaling a new willingness to confront aggression head-on. The White House has declared the era of strategic patience over, making it clear that the time for waiting and watching has passed. President Thompson, addressing the nation from the Oval Office, announced a bold new doctrine of accountability. The sweeping measures target Russia's energy sector, its sovereign debt, and the personal fortunes of Putin's closest allies, aiming to strike at the very heart of the Kremlin's power. The goal is clear: cripple the Kremlin's ability to project power abroad and force a reckoning for years of unchecked aggression. The implications are global, with every nation bracing for economic and political fallout. Markets are already reacting, and uncertainty ripples across continents. For years, Russia has tested the boundaries of international law, from the annexation of Crimea to ongoing conflict in Ukraine, and now, a wave of alleged cyber sabotage, targeting critical infrastructure worldwide. Washington's response marks a fundamental shift in policy. The cost of aggression is now too high to ignore, and the world is watching to see how Russia will respond. The world asks, will Putin back down in the face of overwhelming pressure, or will he escalate the confrontation even further, risking a broader conflict? Tonight, we break down this historic decision, explore its deep roots, and examine the far-reaching impact it could have on global stability, alliances, and the future of international relations. The stakes have never been higher. As midnight approaches, the world waits, uncertain of what tomorrow will bring. To grasp today's crisis, we must revisit the long, fraught history between the US and Russia. The Cold War forged deep mistrust, proxy wars, arms races, and the ever-present threat of nuclear conflict. The fall of the Berlin Wall brought hope, but optimism faded quickly. Russia saw NATO's expansion as betrayal, fueling resentment. Vladimir Putin's rise marked a turning point. Restoring Russian power became his mission. He consolidated control, reasserted state dominance, and adopted a confrontational foreign policy. Old rivalries resurfaced, from Chechnya to Georgia, each side seeing the other as the aggressor. This fundamental divide, grievance versus democratic values, has only deepened. It's this chasm that leads us to today's confrontation. The road to today's standoff is paved with flashpoints. Putin's resolve was clear in Chechnya, then Georgia, where Russia invaded a sovereign neighbor for the first time since the Soviet collapse. The West's muted response emboldened Moscow. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea, violating international law and igniting war in Ukraine's Donbass. The 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine was meant to subjugate Kyiv and fracture NATO, but instead, it unified the West. The war has become a bloody stalemate with massive human cost. Now, with Russia accused of sabotaging a transatlantic data cable, Washington has drawn its ultimate economic line. Years of escalation have led to this moment. The stakes are no longer regional, they're global. The world watches for what comes next. Today's decision is the culmination of months of escalating tensions between the United States and Russia, a period marked by growing mistrust, cyber skirmishes, and diplomatic standoffs that have kept the world on edge. The crisis reached a boiling point with a final provocative act that shocked both governments and citizens alike. U.S. intelligence agencies quickly pointed the finger at Russia, accusing them of orchestrating a sophisticated cyber-physical attack that severed a critical transatlantic communications cable, plunging global financial markets into chaos and disrupting vital data flows across continents. Moscow, however, vehemently denies any involvement, calling the accusations baseless. But mounting evidence, including surveillance of a Russian naval vessel near the break, raises serious suspicions. Inside the Oval Office, President Thompson faced fierce debate among his top advisors, weighing the risks of escalation against the need to respond decisively. Ultimately, he chose overwhelming economic retaliation as the only viable path forward. In a somber national address, President Thompson declared, "Any attack on our core infrastructure will be met with swift, severe, and sustained economic response." His words signaled a dramatic shift in U.S. policy. This new doctrine abandons years of strategic ambiguity, replacing it with a clear and unmistakable red line for adversaries to see. The administration's aim is to force a fundamental change in Kremlin behavior, making it clear that such attacks will carry heavy costs. At the same time, the US hopes to send a powerful message to other adversaries around the world, warning them against similar provocations. The administration is betting that the pain inflicted by sweeping financial sanctions will outweigh any potential gains for President Putin and his inner circle, crippling Russia's economy and isolating it further on the world stage. Now, as anxious crowds gather around screens in cities across the globe, the world waits to see if this high-stakes gamble will succeed. The test of resolve, strategy, and international order begins now. Analysts call these measures a sanctioned supernova. The US has frozen Russia's central bank and national wealth fund assets, crippling its financial defenses. Secondary sanctions now target any global entity buying Russian oil or gas above a strict price cap, forcing a choice: Russia or the US. Over 100 oligarchs and officials face full economic excommunication. Anyone doing business with them risks being cut off from the US financial system. Global corporations, even in neutral countries, are under pressure to sever ties. A sweeping ban on all technology exports aims to degrade Russia's industrial and military base. The intent, not just punishment, but to cripple the foundations of the Russian state and its elite. The Kremlin's power structure is under direct assault. The world braces for the fallout. Global markets have reacted with panic. Oil prices have surged, stocks have tumbled, and central banks are scrambling. Europe, closest to Russia, is hit hardest. Energy prices soar, and financial institutions with Russian exposure are reeling. Russia's ruble has collapsed. Inflation is set to skyrocket, and ordinary Russians face economic devastation. The Kremlin calls it economic warfare, vowing resilience, but anxiety grips Moscow. The social impact is unpredictable. Will hardship fuel dissent, or rally support for Putin? The sanctions target the Kremlin, but ordinary Russians will suffer most. The world watches to see if economic pain sparks political change. The shockwaves are global, and the consequences uncertain. The next moves could reshape the world order. America's move is forcing nations to choose sides, reshaping alliances. China, Russia's key partner, faces a dilemma: support Moscow and risk Western markets, or distance itself to protect its own economy. Beijing's response is cautious, calling for restraint, but offering no clear support. Europe, meanwhile, is united behind Washington, despite the economic pain. The transatlantic alliance is stronger than in decades. In the global south, countries like India and Brazil must now pick between cheap Russian energy and access to US markets. The era of non-alignment is under threat. The Thompson administration's strategy is high-risk isolate Russia, but risk alienating much of the world. The global chessboard is being reset. The stakes are enormous. To truly grasp the magnitude of this crisis, we must listen to those who have experienced its consequences firsthand. Their stories reveal the human cost behind the headlines and the urgency that drives diplomatic decisions. Dr. Evelyn Reed, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, describes the current moment as crossing the Rubicon, a decisive step meant not just to deter aggression, but to fundamentally alter the balance of power. She emphasizes that this is a turning point, a move with consequences that will echo for years. According to Dr. Reed, the U.S. administration has lost faith in the possibility of meaningful diplomacy with Putin's regime. The breakdown in trust is nearly complete, and the usual channels of negotiation have all but closed. Security expert Dr. Julian Croft issues a stark warning: Putin can't win an economic war, so expect hybrid attacks, cyber intrusions, disinformation campaigns, and manufactured crises in other regions, all designed to fracture Western unity and sow confusion. Economist Maria Chen points out, weaponizing the dollar may bring short-term leverage, but it also accelerates global efforts to escape U.S. financial dominance. Other nations are now more motivated than ever to seek alternatives. Each new round of aggressive sanctions pushes America's rivals to collaborate, innovate, and build alternative systems that could one day challenge the current order. Inside Russia, an independent journalist shares a sobering perspective. The Kremlin will frame these actions as a Western attack on all Russians, fueling a sense of siege and rallying the public around the flag. Nationalist sentiment may keep people united for a time, but as daily life becomes harder, when families struggle to afford food and basic necessities, anger and frustration will inevitably grow. The critical question remains: can the regime contain that anger? or will it eventually erupt into open dissent and protest in the streets? We are now entering what may be the most unpredictable and volatile period in Russia's post-Soviet history, with outcomes that are impossible to fully foresee. The risks of escalation, retaliation, and internal upheaval are not just theoretical, they are immediate and real, with the potential to spill far beyond Russia's borders. Around the globe, leaders, analysts, and ordinary citizens are watching events unfold, knowing that the outcome will shape the world for years to come. The next moves on this geopolitical chessboard will define not only the future of Russia, but the stability of the entire international order. The stakes could not be higher. The world holds its breath, waiting to see what happens next. We stand at the edge of a new era. The US has made its move, markets are in turmoil, and the world braces for Russia's response. Putin faces a stark choice: de-escalate or risk a catastrophic spiral. The risks are immense. Miscalculation could ignite a wider conflict. Economic shockwaves will touch every corner of the globe. The unity of the West will be tested by both Russian retaliation and domestic pain. Sustaining resolve will be the challenge for President Thompson and allies. The story is just beginning. The coming days are critical. The world watches Moscow, Beijing, and the streets of Russia for what comes next. History is being written right now.